Hello and welcome to the Drew and Luke podcast, sponsored by our friends at nerdgeist.com and patreon.com/Andy Luke, channeled through Spotify, iTunes, Stitcher and many more. I'm Andy, the Drew Luke, a working writer on comics and comics fiction, TV and poetry, and today I'm joined by the Luke of Lawther, laying down the Lawther, the nation's favourite Emperor President, Captain Doctor, Mr. Sir Ian Lawther. Ian is the Vice Chief of the UK and Irish region, Trek Fan Club Starfleet, and a regular fixture on Star Trek podcasts and community outreach things. Hello, Ian.
Hi, Andy. Thanks for having me.
Welcome. How are you doing today? What have you got going on in your workload?
Oh, man, I'm excited. I've been wanting to do this Shield podcast for a long time because you're the only person I know actually watched the thing. I thought I was the only person in our sort of group, so it's great to come on and be able to talk to something that's not Star Trek all the time.
It's just a wonderful series, so filled with complexities and the writer's room is simply spinning plates at all time, and there's wonderful.
Doesn't add up.
Yeah, a lot of it's quite on the nose. There's a lot of nuances as well. I think we'll just go ahead and get into it. So we'll give an overview. By the way, this podcast contains spoilers for seasons 1 to 3 of FX's The Shield. So if you haven't done those, go away now. And of course, discussion of graphic violence and lots of really ugly things. So, The Shield, an American crime drama series starring Michael Chiklis that premiered on March 12th, 2002 on FX. The Shield follows the activities of an experimental division of the Los Angeles Police Department set up in the fictional Farmington district, the Farm. A district rife with gang-related violence, drug trafficking and prostitution. Operating out of a converted church, the Barn, some Farmington police work to maintain the peace in the district and reduce crime. Others resemble the type of corrupt officer known only too well through police scandals such as Crash, Rampart, and the killings of music artist George Floyd and medical worker Breonna Taylor. So, Season 1, Episode 1, we're introduced to the Barn and Captain David Aceveda, a Hispanic captain with designs on a political career. Claudette Wims, a feisty but thoughtful black veteran detective. Dutch Wagenbach, Claudette's partner, who's overabundant in psychological training, ambition and a need to prove himself. Officer Danielle Danny Sofer, hard-edged, professionally competent southern lass, politically a bit dim, and she works as a training officer to rookie Julian Lowe, a naive black Christian man and Farmington native who struggles with his sexuality. The Barn is unique in containing an anti-drug enforcement unit, the Strike Team, who operate behind closed doors and beyond lines of morality. An all-boys club, quiet Ronnie Gardocki, newcomer Terry Crowley, optimist Kurt Lem Lemansky, wildly unpredictable racist Shane Vendrell, and their leader Vic Mackey, corrupt yet effective and both hero and villain of the show.
You've in that paragraph, there's so much to talk about. So many characters that centres around this Strike Team. Vic Mackey, as you say, is the hero and the villain. Normally TV shows give you, a definite, yes, this is the villain, this is the hero, and it's very straight-laced. In this show, by the end of the first episode, you don't know who the good guys are, you don't know who the bad guys are, and what that does is just make you want to keep watching. So I don't know where you want to start, Andy.
I think
start with the Strike Team, or
so Michael Chiklis is a sort of the face of the series. He's the iconographic Judge Dredd sort of take no shit, beat the crap out of the crooks sort of character, and his team, the attitude of them and the chemistry between the five members is is set up quite well in this first episode. Vic is positioned as the alpha of Farmington PD, and of course you get Dutch Wagenbach, who's the beta, and so it's a show of two halves in some ways. A series of two halves, in that you do have the strike team, and then you have the greater ensemble of those other cops around them.
I think it's safe to say that Dutch is a character who's very good at his job, but is kind of the laughing stock of the strike team and some of the other officers. You know, you could almost say he gets bullied quite a bit.
Yeah.
You know, because Dutch likes to use his brain to solve things, and Vic and the strike team, they just want to get into the action, crack a few heads, do things that way. You know, straight away, you know, you're introduced to this dynamic of Vic likes to make fun of Dutch every chance he gets. You know, there's always these wee slide comments when he's passing Dutch, and he certainly likes making fun of Dutch quite a bit. Which I think, you know, as the series went on, you know, frustrates Dutch more and more, that, you know, he wants to start solving the big cases so that, you know, he can hold his hand up and say, you know what, I'm just as cool as you, or just as badass.
Yeah, the B plot in this episode is with Dutch and the wonderful CCH Pounder playing his partner Claudette, and my memory's hazy, but they're tracking some kind of rapist or serial murderer, and it's a very, like any storylines where Dutch is involved, it's quite a psychologically intense or navigated direction. And the chemistry between CCH Pounder and Jay Kearns is just wonderful. This veteran cop who's she's seen it all, really, and she's worldly wise, and she knows when not to stick her nose into the politics of other officers. And Dutch, who, like you say, he's a nerd. He's he's comedy for laughing at. But he's kind of a genius.
He is, and you know, he brings all these new ideas to the department. You know, he's the thinking man's cop. You know, you wouldn't want him to have to back you up in a street fight, but if you need something solved, he's probably the man to look through all the evidence and see things that people have missed. Whereas, again, the strike team is, you know, right, show us the bad guy, we'll go and get him, we'll sort him out, you know, end off. So Dutch is probably one of my favourite characters.
Yeah, mine too. Yeah, he is just a big ball of complexities.
He really is, and as the show goes on, you know, that complexity just grows and grows.
Yeah. We have to talk, I think, about Catherine Dent, who I just have a crush on, playing Officer Danny Sofer, who is a fairly sort of regular beat cop who can handle herself. I mean, she knows the streets, she knows protocol in regards to dealing people and, you know, how to approach a situation. And she has under her wing Michael Jace. The character's name is Julian Lowe, who is green. He's as green as he can be, really. And Danny has to mentor him and stop some of the silly risks he's taking. Although he has a good heart, or he believes he has a good heart. We'll come on to that.
Great heart, but he is very naive. You know, Danny is a woman cop and very much a male-orientated barn. So, you know, she's as tough as she's had to become as tough as they are. You know, so it's a great dynamic. You've got this. Danny is quite a veteran of being out in the streets. Julian is so new, and he's got these ideas of, I'm really going to go out there and make a difference in people's lives. And then he goes out there, and making a difference is very hard in that world.
Yeah.
and he does take some crazy risks in the first season.
Yeah, because he's very much an officer that has designs on making it at community level, about having the police deserve to be trusted in, but he doesn't really know how to get from A to B, and he thinks he knows at many different stages, only to have himself be set right, or he'll back up on something he's done, or and in the middle of all these competing forces, we have the captain, David Aceveda, who is quite Weasley, I think, if that's not too unfair.
He's the politician.
Yeah.
Captain, he really is. Everything he does is to elevate his own position, to get up to the next step of the ladder. So he comes across, again, like in The Shield, nothing's black and white. And a lot of things he does, he's right. But there's that underlining, you're doing these just to advance your career. Do you really care about what's going on? Or are you just doing whatever it takes to advance your career? And I think that's where the problem with the strike team comes into play for him. He wants to get up the ladder, and here you've got a strike team led by Vic, who quite frankly gets complaints put in about them every other week, if not every week. So that doesn't look good on his resume. So, that creates the tension initially, I think.
Yeah. Before we get into the strike team in more depth, I want to have a few notes here. So initially the series was going to be called Rampart, and this comes from Rampart was the name of an LA strike team, very much like the strike team we see here. It was part of Crash, which was an American police anti-gang initiative, and this kind of all exploded in a scandal about 97, 98 with an officer named Rafael Perez, who was caught with coke and money laundering and a lot of the shit that we see Vic and the strike team pull. Perez was turned, and he listed corruption across Rampart in America, and there was a scandal. There was a big inquiry, but that was kind of hushed up, and it was confined to just LA. And some say that good cops went down and that Perez exaggerated, thus making a mug of the institution, settling scores against other officers who he didn't like, and he was getting away with it. Others say that the investigation was never properly looked into. It was all hushed up because Perez I think he named something like 100 officers in his charges, and I think it's certainly, whether Perez was taking the piss or not, it's certainly safe to follow the line that there hasn't been transparency, there hasn't been things looked into in policing in America, with many of these corruptions still happen, as we've been sadly learning.
It's actually it's scary to think, after watching The Shield, that The Shield, could be based on like partially like a reality of a real situation. It's actually quite scary to think that sort of stuff goes on. But as we're reminded pretty much every day in the news now, America and the police force, making controversial decisions, should we say? It's actually quite scary to think that there could be truth into those allegations.
The barn itself is a very big character, the police station in Farmington, and for those who are familiar with the ideas of Michel Foucault, it's kind of played out like a panopticon. So a panopticon is a prison that's architecturally structured from maximum observation. So you get right in the centre of the barn, we have the cages where the prisoners are held, and then we have like an arc-like structure where the desks of the officers are placed around that, and then we'll have the balcony, because it's built on an old a remodelled old church, and up in the balcony is interrogation rooms, which are connected by camera to a viewing room, and then you have the captain's office, and he can anybody up top can go and look out, and they can see what the officers in the desks are doing and the prisoners in the cages. And there's one anomaly in the panopticon, and that's a closed door that says something like, "Nobody come in here, the strike team." And it's a strike, and there's no transparency in the strike team because they are kind of a law unto themselves.
That sets the mood. You see that door, everything else is visible to somebody except for this door where the strike team meets and operates from, and nobody has a clue what's going on, behind that door. So that sets the tone of the series,
I know we said we'd keep it rolling and get on to the next point, but I just wanted to bring up quickly a bit about the people who are involved with season 1 of The Shield and the creative direction. So the showrunner is Sean Ryan, who before that was known as a producer on season 2 of Angel, which was a pretty dark season. And Sean wrote a handful of episodes there, including the fan favourite Zombie Cop episode, which I think is called something like the Dead Blue Line, which is very unsettling. Cops come back to life and engineer all manner of brutalities. You've got on the writing staff, another Angel crossover is a duo of Elizabeth Craft and Sarah Fian, I think. You've got Glenn Mazzaraza of The Walking Dead, Kurt Sutter of Sons of Anarchy, and that's you can definitely see the link there. And episodes 1, 3 and 5 of The Shield are wonderfully directed by Clark Johnson, who at the same time was directing episodes 1, 2 and 5 of The Wire. The two shows ran concurrently, and actually Clark Johnson, little spoiler for you, Ian, because you've not seen the final season, but Clark Johnson directs both the first and last episode of The Shield and The Wire.
Oh.
So nice sort of chemistry.
Absolutely.
Captain Aceveda tries to crack corruption in the barn by recruiting Terry within the strike team to help him take down Vic. Word reaches Vic through his source, Chief Assistant Ben Gilroy. At the end of episode 1, during a raid on a drug dealer, Vic and Shane murder Terry in cold blood.
Wow. This is what got me hooked on this series. Because, TV shows tend to, build up slowly. This one just exploded at the end of the first episode.
Yeah.
And it puts into question, right, who are you supposed to cheer for? Who are the good guys in this? And pardon the pun, it blew my mind. Yeah,
it's a really difficult scene. It leaves an impression. I say it's an iconic moment of television, really.
It is, So from and from that point on, I was saying, right, so Vic Mackey and his team, they're the bad guys. But again, as the show goes on, what you find is there's a lot of bad guys.
So a bit more clarification. I mean, Terry has been, he is a cop. He's just been their driver up until this point, and what we see Terry getting close to from Vic's perspective is that Vic is operating as the landlord, a drug dealer in Farmington, who offers special privileges to the dealers who work with him, like maybe getting the tip off when there's a big arrest scoop on the way, inside intel, and of course he and the strike team get their cut, and occasionally bags of cocaine go missing from lockers. And the shooting of Terry, I mean, it's such a bleak taboo in cop sociology that the killing of a cop is the worst thing ever, and everybody on the street knows this. And Vic, just almost the way Clark directs the episode, it's almost very casual. We get the zoom in after it's happened, but Michael Chiklis just turns and plants a bullet straight in Terry's head.
It's chilling. the way it played out and the way the actor plays it, just the emotionless look on his face. Because even, who was the other strike member in?
That was Shane. Crazy Shane.
Crazy Shane. I mean, even the look on Shane's face, you know, was like, what, you know, was holy shit, you know.
Yeah, Aceveda has his suspicions about what went down. Shane knows. Ben Gilroy fed him the information. Ben Gilroy suspects, and I think later Vic pretty much just admits to him. But this is such an inciting incident for the whole series, for every episode that comes after. And I mean, we're jumping a bit ahead here. Do you think that incident was played out too much? Because does feel like it deserves closure a lot more quickly, maybe at the end of series 1 or.
Well, I mean, obviously it was still the first episode, but my opinion on the series changed. You know, for me, after seeing that, the show was about how long can the strike team go on without getting caught.
Yeah.
That's what the show became to me. You know, it wasn't. It was now, you know, right, how long can they get away with this? And as the show goes on, it's like, it's almost as if they keep digging a bigger grave for themselves. To me, it was, how are they going to get out? How are they going to get out of getting caught this week? Or, you know. Yeah.
I mentioned earlier that the writer's room is always spinning plates, and this is very much central to Vic Mackey's character, that he's always juggling 6 things at once. He's trying to make everything align. Frequently shortcuts get burned out on. Yeah. Oh, that's a great analogy.
10 moves ahead. Thinking 10 moves ahead. And then, of course, you know, then you find out he's got a family life. And you're just like, you know, how could this man possibly have a family and love his kids? Complex character.
Yeah, Corinne, played by Kathy Kaelin Ryan, Sean Ryan's wife. And he has 3 children. One of whom has been diagnosed as autistic within the second episode. And yeah, Vic is, I think the chess playing analogy's incredible. And it gives you that sense, you know, when, like in Breaking Bad, where the scrapyard scene is the epitome of that ball crunching. How do they get out of this? I think The Wire is superb at doing that. And Vic is almost metatextual in his thinking in doing so.
And of course, his son being diagnosed with autism is almost a big point, because what Vic realises very quickly is he needs more money.
Yeah, and there's no bigoted question of judgment about, you know, a son being a freak. Yeah. That doesn't happen. That he goes straight to, I'm going to support my kid, I'm going to support my wife, I'm going to support the family.
You know,
yeah.
Within a couple of episodes, you go from hating Vic Mackey to thinking, oh, he's not that bad.
He's
and then you remember,
stand-up. Yeah.
You know,
yeah.
You don't know what to think of him, you know.
It's an incredibly complex character. Okay. Dutch looks for a serial killer, but instead finds a serial rapist with a refrigerator full of sperm. Eventually his theories turn over a killer preying on prostitutes, and he convinces Aceveda to mobilise a barn in an all-out effort to find a man before he strikes again. Despite his failure, Dutch won't let it go. He meets his match as a psychologist with Sean, an egotistical garage mechanic, but Dutch turns the tables, exposing Sean as the killer he's been searching for.
I thought this storyline, you know, was going to break Dutch, because there was times where he was getting nowhere, and he knew that the mechanic was probably responsible, but he just couldn't put the pieces together. And the way the actor plays it, you could almost see the steam coming out of his head, as if it's breaking him. You know, and that's the beauty of Dutch. You know, when Dutch goes in on a case, he goes all in. He eats the case. He's sleeping with the case. You know,
yeah.
That's all it consumes him. That's all he has. And in this storyline, you realise how brilliant he is, but how vulnerable he is. If he can't get the case over the finish line, it near enough destroys him.
Well, I think isn't this one of the arc stories of season 1?
Yeah. Mm.
So we've already seen a number of episodes of him trying to track down this character, trying to work out the psychology of him, who he is, where he'll be, and he's hammering his head against the wall. It's a random tip-off that leads him to him. He gets him in the interrogation room, and then we get another 5 scenes of maybe 10, 12 minutes where Dutch is again banging his head against the wall, and it's another random little thing that tips him off, because this guy is every bit as smart as Dutch. Do you remember the scene where fairly late on in their Battle of Wills, where Dutch walks into the interrogation room and Sean has been working the whiteboard?
Yeah, again, if I remember that scene right, again, that was the play. I think that was the play into Dutch's head as paranoia, and again, how those two actors play that scene, it's just, you can watch those two. Yes,
Sean has just filled the whiteboard in the interrogation room with a list of all the psychological traits of Dutch. He has difficulties getting on with his co-workers, feels he's unattractive to women, lives alone. Yeah. Every sort of damning bit of psychological profile.
Every time Dutch tries to get into his head, Sean deflects it back at him 100 times more. It's like watching again, it's almost like a chess match or a boxing match of the minds, back and forward, who's going to crack first. And for a lot of time you think it's going to be Dutch, until, as you say, that last second where he comes across something that fits and he finally gets his man. But again, just watching that, you would almost forget about what's going on with Vic and the strike team.
Yeah.
That could be a main story on itself.
Yeah. Claudette is a wonderfully stabilising influence on Dutch. She's always a very stoic figure, always on at him to get his game together when his head's not in it. And she has...
talking to someone about that. Do you think she's almost like a mother figure in a...
yeah, there's elements of it, but not completely. There's a lot of lovely little moments where Dutch flirts with Claudette, and it's like, they both know it's not serious, it's not ever going to lead to anything, but it's like Dutch just wants to let her know that she's still special, she's still important, she's still got it, and Claudette.
Well, she's the only one that really has Dutch's back in the whole barn, really.
Yeah, and she has, I mean, not completely, but she does have great confidence and faith in Dutch's abilities. There's many scenes where they're watching the interrogation from the camera, and Claudette's like, no, just wait, he's going to do it at any minute.
Yeah.
Vic gets a call from a CI, a junkie prostitute named Connie. Her mother has died and she has no one to take care of her baby. The strike team step in to look after Connie as she detoxifies. Connie's quite a great character. She's wonderfully played.
Yeah, I kind of totally blew my mind as well. Because here's this badass strike team that only seem to care about results, but yet when a CI has a problem, they all step up. Now obviously it's led by Vic, and maybe the fact that he has kids maybe softens him to her situation.
Yeah, you're right.
But I've never seen like somebody take care of their CI like Vic does, and genuinely seem to want to take care of her.
Yeah, Kern, the rap artist, Vic's constantly looking out for him, and there's a few others. The actress who plays Connie is Jamie Allman. And she's kind of like that character in Breaking Bad, who's one of Jesse's drug dealers. She's a hooker. She's constantly addicted. She's desperate, but we don't ever fully get what is the history between her and Vic. But he's definitely not out for his usual sort of Don Draper screw. He's very
He's
devoted to
offer
in
a lot of ways. And again, I don't know if that's just because, he's a Fowler and wants to protect her for the baby's sake.
It also demonstrates strike team's loyalty. Because Lem is in there sitting with her, Ronnie's sitting with her, because Vic says so.
Yeah, exactly. And it's, again, it's that whole narrative is designed, again, to make you think twice about the strike team just being bad guys, you know? Which is what I love about the series. Every time you think you've made up your mind, right, this person's a bad guy, this person's a good guy, it does things that just make you rethink that situation. Not many shows do.
I think we need to talk about Walton Goggins briefly, who this is, I think, is his first major role as Shane Vendrell, and Shane is a fire starter. If anybody is going to question Vic's line, it's going to be his best friend Shane.
Yeah.
Trouble.
Shane is, out of all the strike team, to me, Shane is dangerous.
Yeah.
Vic can control him, but there's times when you think he's not like Vic. He doesn't think 10 moves ahead. He's very quick to make a decision without thinking it through, and then Vic has to bail him out. But yes, there's just a real, quite frankly, a real scumbag element to him. Yeah,
his attitude to that Connie situation would be, well, screw that bitch.
Yeah, exactly. In fact, he probably said that.
And Vic's very good. He's very good at keeping him under control, at explaining to him why things have to be done a certain way. But the problem is that Vic has to constantly be doing that, because Shane is a wild card, and Goggins plays him superbly. He's a cowboy with a black leather jacket, the spiky hair, and the sort of skeletal bone structure.
He just gets up in the morning just to give someone a beating,
Yeah, and
he likes to get in on the physical stuff, and
it's kind of Shane's law, really. Shane just does as he pleases, pretty much. Most likely. Right after we get Dutch's own series.
Absolutely.
Okay. So to round out season 1, Vic and Corinne's son Matthew is diagnosed with autism. Matthew's special schooling is expensive and paid for by Vic's illegal deals. Meanwhile, Vic's backer, Chief Assistant Gilroy, uses a Farmington force as part of a property fraud. Gilroy becomes increasingly desperate for Vic to keep his secret, initially blackmailing him over Terry's death, and then threatening his family. As the scandal leaks out, the barn becomes a target of a full-blown blood and fire riot.
We see the first mistake Gilroy makes is threatening Vic's family.
Yeah.
Because if there's any time that Vic sometimes doesn't think things through and gets it and loses it is if you go near his family.
No passerana.
Yeah, you knew if Vic was going to destroy him whatever way he could.
We were talking a minute ago how Gilroy is very much quite a central inciting figure through season 1. He's the guy who gets Vic on the strike team. In fact, most of the people in the barn are Gilroy's people. He has positioned him there. He's the one that gives Vic the extra bit of leash when Aceveda's trying to nail him.
Yeah.
He's the one who passes on the word about Terry. And then we find out Gilroy has been moving policing operations around certain districts in Farmington away from others where he owns property, and the property he has bought for cheap in those areas where crime has moved away from. Now the property value soars, and he's making a killing, and Vic is prepared to cover it up until the point where Gilroy needs
blackmails him.
Yeah.
So it's certainly a gamble, and also that has big repercussions into season 2, because Gilroy in a way is the strike force's shield. Protects them to a certain degree. Without that, things would get a lot more hairy for the strike force. And then when you think about when you say the barn becomes the full-blown, blood and fire riot.
Yeah, it's under siege for like 2 days.
It's under siege. The shit hits the fan in a big way.
It really is a phenomenal season finale, because you have the Vic story on one, the Vic Gilroy story on one thing, and all that Crowley stuff and the landlord, drug dealer, all that might come out. But then you have the whole station is under fire, and isn't this where we get the cops, the 911 calls story?
Yes.
Cops, because there's been some sort of, there was a 911 call made, and it took 45 minutes for the police to come out, after which time people have been left dead. The families of the deceased, one of them starts phoning up cops to attend scenes, and then the cops are shot dead, and there's something like 4 cops killed, and it's
4 cops killed. It's it's a revenge plot, isn't it?
Yeah.
The police couldn't get to respond to the 911 calls because of the riots and what have you. This person feels hard done by, and calls cops into situations and then just starts shooting.
You can really feel the tension. I think it's such a great way to end season 1. It's all there's no cliffhanger. It's all wrapped up. Although the consequences of the Gilroy scandal will be felt, and this, if anything, it makes the strike team more aggressive. Although Vic has the wind knocked out of him, because basically places his family under protective custody while Gilroy's walking about, and eventually, when it settles down, his family leaves him. He is paid the cost for doing what he does.
Yeah, absolutely. His wife takes his view of, we've got kids that are artistic, you're always on the job, your job's dangerous, which means we could be in danger. So she gets out of there, and probably rightly so. But again, it does destabilise Vic for the first time. You start to see him having a few doubts in his head about why he does the things he does. But that doesn't last particularly long. He gets the strike team back on track and moves them forward. So that brings us to season 2. Witnessing the strike team steal drugs from a bus, Officer Julian, though, reports them to Internal Affairs and later recants. He's also struggling with his sinful urges. Embarking on a course of sexual reorientation, he quickly marries a woman from his church. When his former partner Thomas outs him to the barn, Julian is subjected to a beating which seriously injures him. Yeah, this really, from a character who in season 1 was just really the rookie and was getting put through his paces. Now he's front and centre, reporting the strike team to Internal Affairs. He really is new, because that's not a good idea.
Yeah, he's given warnings by Aceveda that who totally wants to nail Vic. You don't do that, man.
Yeah.
You're in crosshairs.
Yeah, and then when you think he's got enough on his plate, then you realise very quickly that the character's gay, but he's a Christian, so he's really having a hard time with it, and goes through the sexual reorientation program that a lot of churches claim to do, or and he then, and that's why I was laughing just at the words. He then quickly marries a woman from church. Yeah,
it's within like 6 episodes of taking up the therapy.
It's quite scary to think that you feel that you need to go through all that.
I don't like Julian. I think he's a well written character with a lot of complexities and such, but I think he's a fearful fool. He lets his Christian narrative lead him, except when it suits him. And as I said earlier, he is so green. He's so green. I thought it was interesting, Acevedo sort of warning him, you don't want to do this. And essentially what he has seen Vic and Shane steal cocaine. Boom. And this is what Acevedo has been looking for all along. Julian wants to set it right, and it should be so easy.
Yeah, that's confused me a wee bit why he was warning him off. Because his whole story is he wants Vic caught in the act. He wants Vic out of there. He's too much of a headache. But yet, when Julian comes up to say, look, I want to report it to Internal Affairs, he's actually like, I thought he would jump for joy, but he doesn't.
Yeah.
It's like,
So Acevedo is pretty much going through a process of realising that he's got to play things differently. He's pretty sure Vic killed Terry, and Vic has given him a number of headaches since then. But I think this is one of those few moments where we see Acevedo acting as a responsible boss. The political thing, he's like a union leader, and he knows that Julian has to be 100% sure that he saw this and that he's going to go through with it, because it's going to rain hell down on Julian. With the sexual reorientation therapy, now it's really surprised me that the Shield went there. Maybe more so because it's in hindsight that since this was shown 20 years ago, sexual reorientation therapy has come under such fire for trying to program youngsters, young men and women, and tell them exactly how to think. It has drawn so much ire, but it presents a really interesting point for argument. Okay, so yeah, you can say all you like about how institutionally immoral and unethical behavioural therapy on something like this is for a consenting adult, but if that consenting adult wants that therapy, if they are so uncomfortable in their sexuality that they want to change it, then why shouldn't they have the freedom to engage with that, particularly if it's a part of a bigger social structure like the church, which they are quite involved in?
Yeah, and again, from the point of view of the Shield and Julian, why wouldn't he want to change it? Because to him, it's got nothing but downsides. I mean, even if you put the Christianity thing to one side, once his colleagues find out the way he's treated, he's getting beatings and this, that and the other, so that would muck you up at the head to go, you know what, I can't be this, I need to change.
Yeah.
The problem is, as a lot of studies have showed, it really doesn't work. Some studies have suggested that it's done through fear. Yeah. You're a sinner, blah blah blah. You want to, I'm simplifying it, but if you want to be within God's love and go to heaven, you have to change your ways and repent. I watched an interview. I know we're getting slightly off topic.
Let's go.
The actor that played the Blue Power Ranger, he was a Christian, very, brought up in a very church Christian orientated, and he went on this rehabilitation. His life was miserable. I mean, it really was. It nearly destroyed him. As he said, he lived for a while thinking it did, but he was kidding himself. Now, luckily things turned around for him, and he's accepted who he is. But that doesn't happen for everybody else.
I think the problem for a lot of people where sexual orientation is very difficult is that they don't have the social context. So in the case of Julian, his lover in the first season, Thomas, is a petty crook and con man, and that's a pretty bad choice for a police officer to take as a a partner. Tomas is he's a massive prick. He's ethically dubious, but there's nobody at Julian's church who's going to show no man in Julian's church who's going to show a romantic interest.
No. And again, it's how people react to him being gay, which is the tragedy. He gets a beating. Is it any wonder he's knocked up in the head? Because he's been grown up to think that being gay is wrong. And then, when you've got the likes of Danny trying to say, look, you are who you are, sort of thing, as soon as he tries to embrace it, it's like, no, I get a beating from cops.
From cops, yeah.
So Danny accidentally kills an Arab man who appears to point a gun at her, and the repercussions continue to haunt her. The man's widow embarks on a campaign of harassment, which not only robs her of her promotion, but sees her investigated by internal affairs. So at least her and Vic have something to talk about over by the water machine,
So this is season 2. Season 1 in production was while it was going on with the attacks on the World Trade Center. So anti-Muslim was the thing. It was fever pitch, and this is a really sort of stark scene that Danny and Gillian are called out to these complaining neighbours a couple of times, and the Muslim man is, while he's not the initial instigator, he is quite loud, he's quite vocal, and he comes out. I can't remember if he's got a gun or it looks like a gun, but it's night time and Danny he's refusing her orders and she accidentally shoots him, and then gets drugs planted on her in her car, phone calls home, and
just downhill. It goes from bad to worse for her. And she was, as we were saying, she was going to get a promotion at one point. Does she get depromoted? Doesn't she get?
Yeah, it gets worse. She gets made redundant, and luckily, chance would have it, there's a part-time vacancy. What happens to Danny here, I think, represents what an awful lot of cops have to go through that the media and the popular left don't really touch. That we need to police
decisions.
Hmm?
They have to make split-second decisions.
Yeah,
and they're not always going to get it right, unfortunately.
Yeah, policing is a hard gig. Like, you and I know this in Northern Ireland, where for 30 plus 40 years, every cop in the country would look under the car in the morning, their relatives would listen on the news for fear they were coming home dead or with a missing limb. Their whole families were targeted. Like, that's down to, little kids. Being a cop in a trouble spot is bloody difficult, and defund the police can fuck off, because we need cops. We need cops to protect us from those much scarier people who they've put behind bars. And a lot of the wires, or a lot of the shield, is concerned with that, about our relationship with the police.
Yeah, but what the shield does is they show it from Danny's point of view and how that basically destroys her life. But at the same time, she was in the wrong, right? She did. Yeah.
And that cost a family.
And that cost her badly. But I think it was the mental toll that takes on her, because any decent person would not want that to happen. Would not want to shoot somebody.
Yeah. I mentioned earlier that Danny was politically dim, and I think I chose that because of what goes on in this story arc, that there are certain ways she can spin it. Vic has done an awful lot worse, and he's made it work for him. And he's done that, those killings on purpose. Aceveda is very quick. He's like Vic, thinking ahead to how he can turn something bad to his advantage. And Danny just doesn't. Well, she's a very incredibly competent officer, but she doesn't have those wiles.
No, she doesn't. And to be honest, and there's no one really racing to defend her. She doesn't have the connection, say, Vic has. And Vic would make a very strong case about, you're not out in the front lines, you don't know what it's like out there. Whereas Danny sort of just so caught up on her head about, oh my God, what have I done? That I don't think she could try and play it, even if she wanted to, So yeah, it's not going well for the team of Danny and Julian.
No.
This season it really isn't. So that is it Armadillo
Quintero,
who is a Mexican gang leader who's seeking to take control over Farmington's drug trade. He runs afoul of Claudette and Dutch when he rapes a child who witnessed one of his killings. Getting very dark.
Yeah.
After Vic enacts some hard justice, Armadillo has the strike team greenlit targeted for termination. After Ronnie Gardoki has his face burned on the stove, Armadillo blackmails Vic. He'll have Ronnie resent a statement, or Armadillo will tell how he got his own facial burns.
Armadillo Quintero.
Yeah.
He's I think probably of this run he is the prime boss. The episode where he rapes like a 6-year-old and leaves her with this tattoo of a blue butterfly on her face. It's
that was terrifying.
Yeah. This is a mob boss who sort of embodies the worst that any of the main characters have come up against. He's a genuinely frightening figure and is played as such. Very sort of cold, almost a bit like Marlowe in The Wire.
Yeah, he certainly, to me, it was like, okay, this is someone who is worse than Vic Mackey, who might have the beatings off him. Because if you can do that to a little kid, then there's nothing you will not do. Whereas Vic does have some morals. He's definitely the bad guy of the season.
Yeah.
And you're under no doubt that you want to see this guy get his comeuppance from Vic.
Claudette is invested. Dutch with his psychological know-how is invested. Vic lives to hunt people like this, but Quintero is no pushover. He has declared to the streets that he's trying to take over. The strike team are going down, bounties on their heads, kill them.
So that means every time they go out on a job, they have to watch their backs. I think this is maybe where the strike team, they start questioning Vic a little bit and how he's going to deal with it. You can see that there's a few cracks starting to form under the pressure, which I thought was interesting. And then obviously Ronnie getting his face burned on the stove. That was the first time you had seen a member of the team really get hurt.
In Vic's apartment, no less.
So this is where it should say, you know what, the strike team are vulnerable.
Yeah.
You can hurt them, which we haven't really seen before.
Quintero is quite he's a very cerebral operator. So he basically when the strike team do find him, and I think he has some dirt on them. So Vic's way is, we're going to kill this fucker. And Quintero, he phones the barn and gets every cop in the district down. He tells them where he's hiding, basically, so that Vic won't get in there to lay a finger on them, because Farmington's there to make sure he's taken alive.
Which leads us on to the aftermath of the Ben Gilroy scandal. We have this civilian auditor, Ian Kellis, is sent in by the city council to monitor the barn. She is charmed by Vic. She spars with aggravated and annoyed with Dutch over everything from his sloppy paperwork and to him wanting to get his parking tickets from. Yeah, this is the first attempt to bring somebody in to monitor the barn and see what the hell's going on and how it's run. And again, this is where you see that Vic can actually be a charmer.
Yeah.
Now, I don't think she completely buys it, but at the same time, she, Agatha feels threatened, certainly, because they do a fair bit of sparring back and forth. He's trying to say, look, I've done the best job I could do, given the circumstances, and basically tries to throw Vic under the bus to a degree.
Yeah.
The strike team has caused me nothing but problems.
I feel Lady Kellis, the actress, isn't particularly strong, and the character isn't particularly strong, although the ramifications of her being there certainly are, and that kicks off a lot of really interesting things. For Aceveda, I mean, she's there to look into Vic. She's initially quite charming because Vic, as we said, gets results. But for Aceveda, he is headed for city council. That is his goal here, and she's coming into his house and telling him how things are going to be,
which is not going to go over well.
Yeah, but he has to make that work, and we see this a lot actually. That diplomacy in the Shield it's quite a dark diplomacy, but a lot of the time we have Aceveda and Vic working together on stuff. Not that they want to, but
because they have to.
Yeah, they're making little deals between them.
The enemy of my enemy is my friend.
Exactly.
Against the outsider.
Yeah.
But you can tell that they don't want to work together, but at the same time, Vic has his interests, Aceveda has his interests, and sometimes, the best way to further those are to work together. And that scene, and this would be a theme that goes on throughout the Shield when an outsider is sent into the barn to shake things up. Yeah, I do love Dutch, the comedy value in Dutch. Trying to get his parking tickets washed, and,
I think doesn't he hit on her in her first episode?
He tries,
and Dutch trying to pick you up is 8 times out of 10 not good.
But again, it was to that point. It was such a heavy season that it was nice to see something that made you laugh. Yeah. Because the season was getting very heavy, very fast.
Is it possible Dutch is on the autistic spectrum?
I've seen fans sort of say that. It's possible because the artistic spectrum is wide ranging. So I guess it could be.
Yeah, because he certainly has a unique way of understanding the world. He's definitely high functioning.
He certainly is. Although I have to say, any people that I know on the spectrum have always been really, really clean and organised people. He certainly doesn't.
That's because he's there in his suit and tie every day, perfectly neat. Takes great care of his appearance. But isn't doesn't brag about it, isn't overly, except in defence, where he's the guy who somebody will put him down quite comically, and then he'll shout back something to the opposite, and you can hear the sound in his voice that his words are meant to be terribly funny, but there's nothing to laugh at. It just sounds desperate.
Every time Vic insults him, Vic would walk off. And then suddenly he would shout something, that he thinks is really clever, and Vic would just roll his eyes and walk on,
Because Vic is the barn's hero, but you know what? I'd love to hang out with Dutch for the most part. I prefer to hang out with Dutch, certainly. He'd be very interesting to have a chat with, or a podcast with.
That's just because you're scared of Vic, then.
I don't think Dutch would really help me in that. I think Dutch would probably provoke Vic. If Dutch was here on this podcast instead of you, the podcast would do even worse, because Vic's out there somewhere, like burying it in search engine key codes or something. Maybe we should move on.
Yeah. Right, where we get to? Yeah, so Vic and Shane hear about the money train, dirty profits of the Armenian mob, secretly gathered before being returned to Armenia to be laundered. The strike team plan to infiltrate the high security operations and take the $3 million for themselves.
$3 million, big money. I think this is like their quarterly haul.
It is, but again, things don't go exactly according to plan.
No. No. So this is the strike team's biggest operation. They are planning for this.
Yeah, this is
most of the season.
Retirement level.
Yeah.
We do this, we can retire. Sort of thing.
Lem is bouncing back and forward on whether he's in or not. He's starting to get stressed out by it.
Yeah.
Ronnie, of course, Ronnie has his face scarred, a couple episodes before, and then on the night the thing is due to go down, the money train, not an actual train, a sort of location where they're doing the handover, it changes like a day or two before the location, and Vic is caught on another assignment, and he arrives late to the operation.
He does, and I think his instructions were to wait for him, if I'm not too mistaken, but they couldn't do that.
Just so we're clear here, this is an operation that kind of should have been reported to the barn and busted as a unit, but the strike team are going in and they're going to bust it, and they're going to keep the money for themselves. It's a really big build up. I think the payoff is, as an action scene, I think it's decent enough.
It's decent.
Works.
With Vic being late, that means that Shane's in charge, which is never a good thing. So it doesn't exactly go to plan. They do get the money, but it's not a very neat job, should we say? Yeah,
it's a bit all over the place.
Lots of attention drawn to it.
Yeah, people there who shouldn't be there. At least one killing. They have to show one of the survivors their face. I can't remember exactly why, but a warning is given to sort of get out of town, preferably get out of the country.
Yeah,
I think they're sent over to Mexico, and that I think when they get the money, the scenes are, I'm sure you'll agree, incredibly iconic. They have this, if you think of the scenes of Breaking Bad where Walt has this warehouse full of bricks of cash, it's exactly the same, but there's more cash. It's a big wide open area, and the strike team are sort of all standing around it laughing. They're just dizzy with what they've pulled off.
What they've done.
It's incredibly iconic. So season 3 then, the strike team have broken bad, stealing $3 million from the money train. The Armenians dispatch torturer Margos Dezarian to retrieve it, but Vic loses a share of the team's money to the Bislats gang. Yet more is stolen by Mara, Shane's new girlfriend, for her gold-digging mother. Meanwhile, Dutch leads the investigation and discovers a number of the bills were marked by the Treasury. So, shit's hit the fan.
It has, here they've got their biggest score ever, and what they realise is technically they can't risk spending it.
Yeah.
Because everything is the strike team are pissed. They took the risk for nothing. And then of course Vic does need to take money, doesn't Vic? Vic takes money out of that because he needs.
Yeah, for a sting. It's like he can't get he can't get the money from Aceveda for this guns deal, so he takes it from the strike team's loot, and then loses both the money and the guns.
Yeah, so they're not well chuffed with him. Again, I thought this was quite. Vic is usually very calculating. I didn't think he'd actually risk taking the money, but he did. And this is where I think this is where Shane starts to question them.
Yeah.
Because Shane is usually the loyal follower, but at this point, he's starting to question them, and it doesn't help that Vic really doesn't like the girlfriend, which causes tensions even more.
Mara is one of the sort of the many problems that the strike team has to confront in this season. Mara is, I wonder if she's a bit one-dimensional, because she is a real pain in the butt constantly. Her and Vic don't like each other from the get-go. Shane is committed to her. She finds Shane's key to the storage box, takes the money for her mother's possibly cancer treatment, or a house.
Like that.
And so there's paranoia amongst the strike team, because each of them think somebody else took it and nobody is stepping forward. And usually I think somebody would have done so. That isn't happening. And I think that I don't have the name of the actress who plays Mara, but I think she does an incredible job. Certainly matches what Walton Goggins brings.
Definitely. And you've got poor Lemmy and
Ronnie Gardocki.
Yeah, they're kind of in the middle of this, and they're getting extremely worried, because the shit's falling apart, and these two, and the two leads can't seem to get on the same page.
Yeah, there's frictions, and Dutch is in the middle of it all too, and this brings back the Vic Dutch sparring that had quelled for a while when Dutch solved a big serial killer murder. He was like the hero of the barn for a while, and Vic let him know that he had some respect for him now. But I think we get the line, "Hey Dutch boy, you're on my shit list again."
Sounds about right. Yeah, Dutch is obviously investigating this money, and obviously that's not good for the strike team. But at the same time, Vic, can't exactly go to him like, don't investigate this,
Yeah. All the while Vic's spinning plates as usual. He's throwing out red herrings to Dutch, get him off the scent. But Dutch and his mind being what it is, he navigates past them, and he's storing up all these little red herrings that Vic has thrown him, and wondering, were these intentional?
I did sort of think to myself watching this season that goodbye Dutch, you're dead, man.
Yeah.
Because every time Vic throws him off the trail, as you said, Dutch is smart enough to get back on the trail.
Yeah.
And you're like, is this when Vic has to go kill another cop? Because things are a lot more tense than they were in the first season, even. So, I could certainly have seen that happen. Dutch
could have been going Terry's ways. And he has an awful lot of pressure in this season, as do the strike team. So, at the urging of the civilian auditor, Aceveda adds a minority team member, Tavon Garris, to the strike team. Tavon has been working special crimes and initially gels with the strike team, especially Vic and Lem, but Shane's jealousy and racism comes into play, and the strike team also have to cope with sharing their clubhouse with Wiltshire's decoy squad, a group of an undercover strike team who I think the decoy squad bring quite a bit of colour and comedy to it, and after initial sort of friction between the two teams, they get on quite well, and I think there's a lot of mutual respect between them.
Yeah. But again, the problem is the strike team, have always used that. That's like their back cave.
Yeah.
So, and they've got stuff to hide. So, it's not going to work out when you have both of them there. It just doesn't add up.
Both of them there, and Tavon
mixed up.
But it's certainly there's a security breach in this. This door is now open and closed a lot more often. Get more people in the room, and this is these are the episodes where the strike team has more to hide than they've ever had to hide.
Exactly.
Because people are after this money train money and the leads, and so there's there's definitely a whole surveillance theme running throughout that, and well, I don't know what the opposite of surveillance is. Privacy, trying to navigate under those cameras and recording things.
Yeah. Does Vic have to take more money to help one of his kids out, or was there?
Yeah, we'll come on to that later. Yeah, one of his second child diagnosed with autism. What did you make of Tavon and his chemistry?
I think he he feels like one of the boys.
He does.
Now, obviously, he doesn't know all the crap that they've been doing, but if everything was equal and Vic's team was just on a straight strike force, with no agendas, he'd fit in well. I think Vic would like him, certainly. Shane's threatened by anybody.
Yeah. Anybody that gets closer to Vic than he is, because, let's face it, the two of them were meant to be together as far as Shane's concerned. Tavon does some shit of his own. I can only remember one specific incident, and they're in the interrogation room, him and Lem, and the suspect calls Lem out as a cracker and starts insulting him because of his race, and Tavon tears the suspect off the chair and beats the crap out of him in the corner, and Lem has to pull him off and say, look, it's okay. Lem is very much if the strike team had a heart, Lem is that.
Absolutely. I mean, Lem in some ways is the conscience of the strike team. Yeah. Obviously, you sometimes wonder what he's doing there, because he's almost too nice to be in that team. Saying that, I think he's a guy that, joined the strike team, and then when everything started happening, he just went further and further down the rabbit hole with them, to the point now he can't get out. And I think he's the one with the ulcers, isn't he?
Yeah.
As a result that he always says it's because of the stress of the strike team,
Yeah. So the whole feud between Tavon and Shane ends pretty badly, where Tavon, at Vic's urging, goes to Shane's house to try and make things right, and Shane can't leave it without getting the last word in, at which point Mara gets involved, hits him with a tire iron. Tavon, who's about to attack a pregnant Mara, backs off. He's bleeding everywhere, and on the way home he's in a car crash and in intensive care, and that's pretty deadly.
Yeah, it's. I heard the sirens go off in the background there.
Yeah,
right?
Yeah, all the time.
That was quite well timed, actually.
Yeah, I've got them on the payroll specifically for this podcast, because Patreon.com Andy Luke makes me so rich.
Now we've got a guy, who's hanging on for dear life in the hospital, and Shane is going absolutely nuts. If he wakes up, what's he going to say, or what's he going to do, or So yeah, things just go from bad to worse this season for the strike team.
It's even more drama, and this is definitely what you were talking about Shane being the most dangerous.
When you corner, Shane's like a dangerous animal, a herd animal. When you corner him, that's when he's most dangerous, and this is, I think this is where it's going.
Yeah, and he's. Has he learned from Vic? And I'm thinking no, because while they are feuding in Shane's flat, Mara is out the back somewhere with a child in her belly. So the right thing for Shane to do, if he really wanted to beat the shit out of Tavon, is to do it somewhere else. But he cannot help himself.
He's just a hothead.
Yeah, protect his child doesn't matter, because she's in another room. It's just it goes to the throat every time.
And ultimately, this is in some ways going to be another mess that Vic's going to have to figure out.
Yeah, pretty much that will happen. So this is a pretty heavy point. While pursuing two Bislett drug dealers, Aceveda is taken hostage and raped. He keeps the assault a secret, but pursues the Bisletts with a vengeance, furthering Vic and Lem's paranoia around the loose Armenian money.
Right. In some ways, this is the darkest part of the season. Aceveda is raped and is made to do some really terrible sort of things, and he can't handle it. I think I don't know how many episodes it goes on to, but then we find out that the people that raped him, he was made to give them blowjobs as well.
There's photos. He tells
somebody this, doesn't he?
Yeah, I think he talks to his brother about this possibly, but it's certainly about 6 episodes before he tells his wife,
so you see,
who initially is quite unsupportive.
Yeah.
Who doesn't really understand, and maybe it's shock. But we see in Aceveda quite initially, before he's on the trail of the people who did this to him, that his attitude swings when a rape case comes into the station. He totally sort of gets it. He's on board with what the victim is going through, and given the orders on cases of sexual assaults, he gives priority. He cuts right through the bullshit of the officers. He's very, very focused on this stuff, and privately is, he's a mess.
Yeah, and it was interesting that the Shield does a storyline where it's the guy that gets the abuse. You don't see that very often.
Yeah.
And how he just, explodes, he hires prostitutes just to hurt them. And, he's really in this really dark place. But then you see him, as you say, cutting through the red tape on those types of cases to try and get them resolved for people, because he doesn't want anyone else to go through that.
Yeah. I think the prostitutes is more a sort of a season 4 thing, after his wife pretty much says to him, I don't care what you have to do to get through this, just do it. Yeah. He does sort of go through a hunt of these 2 gang members, and is intent on making them suffer as much as possible. And even I think Vic is on the trail of one of them, and he throws Vic a red herring so that he will get there first. And he's full Dirty Harry. He
is.
Yeah, you're right in that we don't see an awful lot of this rape of men in terms of how these dramas tackle these issues. And there are a lot of problems that are exclusive, or not exclusive, but swing more towards the burdens being put on men. Male suicide is a big one. Males are less likely to talk about rape than women by a huge factor, because of the stats with regards how many women are raped. I've heard things like 1 in 4, and that's just terrifying. And men are much less victims of that, but it's much harder to talk about that, because it's antithesis to the male narrative, what a man is supposed to be. A man isn't supposed to get on his knees and suck another guy's cock as a threat, as a result of a threat. A man is, supposed to bite off that cock or overpower his attacker, or and rise up and do the manly thing.
Men, it's the same thing about, stats about men that go to the doctors or get checked for cancer or stuff like that. Men are more likely to think it's nothing and, not go to the doctors. It's kind of like that. But this was the first show that I seen actually deal with that from a man's point of view. I'm sure there have been others. I'm not saying the Shield's the only one to have done that, but the thing about the Shield is it doesn't shy away from uncomfortable situations.
Yeah.
So it doesn't. And it does make you think about something like rape and rape culture, and and if it is certainly having now a captain that's been through that,
yeah,
and understands the importance of getting closure and justice,
if
not revenge.
At this point in his story, Acevedo's preparing to leave the captaincy. Actually, Claudette takes on a supervisory role in preparation of captaining the barn, because he's going to move on to city council. After arresting a district attorney who is addicted to oxycodone, Claudette finds wrongful convictions in his old cases. Reopening the cases is unpopular at the barn, and the DA's office denies her the promotion to take over from Acevedo as captain. So if I remember right, this is sort of like a last 2 episodes of season 3.
Yeah, this is a case of somebody doing their job too well and not being political enough.
Yeah.
Which is a shame, because Claudette's, in some ways the best of the best that the barn has. She's honest, she doesn't take any shit. But, it's that case of, policing is political.
Parallels here with Rampart, or any political situation where there's going to be an inquiry, and the results of that inquiry, say the powers, are to hush things up, or to quieten down the threat and the problems posed. And initially we do get Acevedo tells her, no, you're not doing this. She goes against his orders and starts digging up old cases where I think there's, before the season's out, she's got at least 2 cases where there's enough space for those to be brought back to trial, where it's looking like somebody was framed. In one case, the sole witness was like 2 blocks away, and the arresting officer was Vic Mackey.
Of course.
Who
else?
Yeah.
Who else? Which again, now you've got Claudette questioning Vic on what he's done in the past. So basically, the wagons are all circling Vic.
Yeah.
And Vic doesn't have a lot of room to manoeuvre, because Claudette, she didn't have that many dealings with Vic over the first 2 seasons, but I did think there was a respect for him.
Yeah.
And what his team had to do, but now
I felt that deep down Claudette knew there was something not kosher about Vic and the way he does things, but she kind of sums it up in saying, look, at the end of the day, all people want from their police is that they can go home after their job, they have a nice relaxing evening, and know that they're not gonna be invaded by some hick or spick, or coming in and raping their wife or beating the crap out of them.
Exactly,
And I think that's sums up her rationale for letting Vic's moral.
She wouldn't have imagined the stuff that Vic and team get up to.
But now she's got hints. She knows
in her head about certain things, and
these are the sort of level of doubts that Claudette, I think, won't let go. And as we'll see through the rest of the seasons, those just grow and grow. Her introduction to the captaincy, I think she's offered the job on Lainey Kellis's advice, and initially she says no, but then she realises that that makes her the perfect person to take the job. She tells the chief commissioner she doesn't want to take the job, but she'll do it. And now her refusal to play politics is working against her.
Yeah. Which again is a shame, because she's probably the perfect person for the job in a lot of ways.
Yeah.
In terms of doing the job, everything's political in every institution, and that will go. Everyone's got an agenda, and you have to play it.
I think this is where we see, if not a fracture, then a separation in the working relationship of Dutch and Claudette. Yeah. Dutch isn't particularly supportive of her digging stuff up, and he distances himself a little from it. There's a lot of shots of their desks being shown quite far apart to demonstrate that. Dutch has his head elsewhere too.
He really does.
So Dutch's story through season 3 has been trying to track down a cuddler rapist who rapes elderly women and then cuddles with them for a while, and there have been a few killings as Dutch has made public statements about the man being impotent and such. So, following Dutch's capture of the cuddler rapist, the two men share an intense psychological discussion on the nature of murder. Frustrated at failing to get into the man's head, Dutch returns home. That night he lures in a caterwauling feline and strangles the animal. That's fucking dark as well.
Yeah, this really shocked
me too.
And it's all to do with how Dutch approaches cases. As he said many times, he tries to get into their heads.
Yeah.
So I assume by killing the cat, he's trying to see what it feels like to kill.
Yeah, the discussion between with the rapist is, the rapist is constantly asking Dutch why he does what he does, and then Dutch will offer an answer, and the rapist will either agree or disagree, but the rapist is very much in control of that discussion, and Dutch is constantly craving answers, and it's I think we're expected to understand that the strangling of this cat, this stray cat that keeps him awake at night, is him trying to get those answers, and of course feeling.
Yeah, this is where I thought to myself, yeah, this is the end of Dutch, because once you go down that path, like it's you watch all the like sort of police procedurals like Criminal Minds and stuff, and one of the key triggers is did the killer mutilate pets as a child or animals, and then that was in my mind when Dutch done that, and I thought, oh dear, he's gone too far down the rabbit hole.
It's quite a shocking scene.
Yeah, I mean, season 3 just keeps doing things that hit you hard. More so probably than I was expecting. In
the episodes following, there's a couple episodes following, and we see somebody brings a box of kittens into the barn, and Dutch is, he's trying to let on everything's all right with them, and Claudette, who's going through her own trials with the politics thing, is reaching out to him and for their dynamic, their mutually nurturing chemistry, and she sort of twigs that a few of Dutch's answers aren't quite aren't quite Dutch.
Yeah.
But there's never any real reveal of what he has done. Do you buy it? Do you buy it as something that somebody who wants to understand why murderers do what they do might?
I don't know if I'm qualified to answer that. We see where does it end? You start off with a cat, and then somebody will point out, but there's a difference between killing an animal and killing a person. So what, do you kill a person? Do you make that escalation?
Yeah.
So
yeah, is there actually anything to be learned from doing that? Well, no.
I wouldn't think so. I don't know, maybe a psychologist or someone could give you a better take on that, but
because what you do when you cross that line is you reposition the student. So now Dutch is a cat killer, and that's he's somebody different.
Yeah, he's someone different, but at the same time,
so he can't answer to the man he was.
He's a guy that lives in his own head.
Yeah,
like 24/7 with cases. He's always trying to think of the logical thing to do.
Well, here's another way.
Him, at the time, it probably made sense to him.
Here's another way of framing that question. Is this something like what Vic or Shane went through the first time they beat the crap out of somebody, or decide to start dealing drugs? Were they sort of intrigued by, how does it happen that people do this shit?
I mean, I don't know, but I don't think so. I think for me, certainly Vic is all about a means to an end.
Yeah.
Now, I'm not saying that the first time he gave someone a severe beating that he felt good about it, but at the same time, Vic always has a reason for why he does things.
Yeah.
And I think in
yeah.
Vic's mind, his team is taking all the risk out there. They're making the streets safer, and they get paid peanuts for risking their lives.
Yeah.
So,
it's the old Walter White refrain, isn't it? I did it for my family. And I'm sure a lot of drug dealers. I'm not counting pot here, because that's a joy, not a drug. But an awful lot of them sort of use that. I did it for my family. Why people do bad things? Find justification from good things.
Yeah. I think Vic would be smart enough to know the only way to survive, for the SWAT team to survive out on the streets, is to be feared.
Yeah. That's the currency.
So I think, the beatings and what have you, they create a reputation for him. And, Vic becomes more than just a man. He becomes this thing that's feared. And that's how his team have survived and thrived in that environment. Whereas Dutch is trying to figure out, right, I have to get into a killer's head. So what better way than to see what it's like to kill? The problem is that's going too far, because that will turn Dutch into someone that he doesn't want to be.
Dutch doesn't have that whole social system. He lives alone. He's if anybody he's got to look after, it's Claudette, and he doesn't really have those connections. So, getting to what you just described of getting inside a killer's head so he can recognise other killers, so he can, break them down better. That's all he has fueling him. And in the case of Jimmy McNulty, the job won't fill that hole in you. So Lem is growing increasingly stressed. He has to turn down Vic's request to support his new autistic child from the Armenian money train money. He lies to Tavon to protect Shane. Tavon's just woken up from life support, and he's lied and told Tavon that he had attacked a pregnant Mara. He fails to stop Vic waterboarding an Armenian dealer, and a victim of that same mob, a young girl, dies in Lem's arms. He decides a strike team are safer if he burns the $3 million. Following a desperate scene where the team fight for leftover paper, the strike team break up. So we mentioned earlier Lem was like spitting up blood from ulcers, and he's just cracking.
Yeah, he just couldn't take it anymore, and he realised that if the money's gone, so's the problem. Unfortunately, the rest of the strike team don't really see it that way.
No, Shane pulls a gun on him.
Yeah, which again, Shane, that would be his sort of a response. Personally, I think Lem done them a favour, because I know they were waiting for that money to, they were going to keep that money until a time when this had all been died down and forgotten about. But yeah, it's an open thing, isn't it? It could bite them in the ass at any time.
Point. We've already had Shane, almost immediately as they get the money, he buys Mara a Corvette or some flashy car. He's refurbishing their apartment, and all it takes is Shane to flash the cash once too much, or Vic, if he does get put his second autistic child in a special school, or get a support teacher in. Any one of those things could bring down the hammer on the strike team.
Them burning the money was a great scene, because Lem, in a lot of ways, was always in the background. He was always sort of the good soldier, he was always there, but so now this is him stepping forward, making a decision. Enough's enough of that shit. Burns the money. And okay, the strike team splits up, but it's, at the end of the day, I always got the feeling he could live with that,
Yeah. And there's I mean, it's quite a funny, unintentionally funny scene to have them like pulling paper out of Lem's fire, and the paper's just flying everywhere, and eventually Vic is all in there doing his usual thing, trying to play peacemaker between them, and all it takes is one stray remark and they're back at each other's throats. I think there's if I remember rightly, there's a bit of time passes and they call Lem for a meeting, and he shows up, and Vic explains, look, we need to get together, and we all care for each other, and Vic's like, oh, thank God, I thought something bad was going to happen, that in Farron they were going to kill him, but so they're all leaving content, and Lem says, just as long as you realised, and Shane is the first to seize on him, and get an explanation that Lem still thinks burning the money was the right thing to do. And then Shane's at Lem's throat, and then Vic is at Shane's throat, and it leads to, we've got a standoff between the two of them.
Vic's smart enough to realise that although it's probably not a decision he would have made, it actually solves a number of problems.
Yeah.
Whereas Shane can't think past money.
Yeah.
And I get it, $3 million's a lot of money, and
and although it's kind of Lem has
what good's $3 million if it's just sitting there and you might never be able to spend it without risking?
Although it's kind of Lem that sort of makes a throwaway remark that sparks this conflict up, it's Shane who must have the last word, and he accelerates this to such a level that him and Vic are like broken. Their relationship is
really broken.
Is over. Shane says something about Vic's family and he's got nothing, and then Vic just tells him that he's looked after him all this time, he's cleared up all his messes after him, and
you're on your own.
Yeah,
Enough's enough.
And it's a pretty dark night,
but a fantastic way to end the season, though.
Yeah.
You knew going into season 4 that the dynamic is going to be totally different, but that's for another day, I guess. But yeah, no, season 3 is probably, to me, one of the hardest hitting seasons of the Shield.
Right.
Now, obviously, with the caveat, I haven't seen the last season yet.
Oh, we're in for some juice, some jungle juice.
Some really great acting in season 3, some very hard subject matter that really makes you think, and then just a great finale, as I said. Lem getting to almost take control of his own life and make a decision that he thinks is for the best, even if the rest of the team thinks he's wrong. It was great to see him step up.
Yeah,
because there wasn't a lot of him doing that sort of stuff.
Yeah, I think Lem's an absolutely wonderful character, and one who'll come more into focus in the next few seasons. So if you've not seen those yet, the pair of us will be back in a podcast covering the last 4 seasons in June. So you'll go out and find, I think Amazon currently have all of it for free on Prime. Go and check it out, because the next 4 seasons are just incredible. As good as it's been so far, it just ramps. Ian, have you anything you wanna plug or talk about before we go?
I run the Belfast chapter of Starfleet International, the USS Caroline. If you're interested in Star Trek and would like to check us out, just go to usscaroline.com and you'll find all the information on our fan club there. I will, in the next couple of months, hopefully be starting my own podcast called Laying Down the Lawther, and I'm sure Andy could give me a plug once I get up and running.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to guesting on that at some point.
Absolutely. But this has been great, man. I've loved talking about the Shield because, as I say, you know, I don't know too many people that actually have watched the Shield. It was a recommendation from a friend at work that knew I liked Breaking Bad and said, look, if you like something like Breaking Bad, give the Shield a go. Yeah,
I think it's been too sadly buried. It really was still is quite a watch. Quite a watch.
It is, you know, and it's something you could go back and watch multiple times, I think, because, you know, just doing up our notes to review these seasons, there's been so many things I went, oh my god, yes, remember that? Things that I didn't remember, because they packed so much into it.
Yeah, we had a job, like even rewriting our notes up to like a couple of hours ago, just to pack it in.
We can get bogged down in the season structures and story arcs, but you know, if you take anything from this, is give the Shield a go. I really think by the end of the first episode you'll be hooked.
Yeah, definitely. Okay, so my very first collection of poems came out. It's called Chaos Magic. It spans 10 years worth of work with never published before pieces and pop cult favourites. Yes, I do have a fan base. So it's Chaos Magic. It's on Amazon, and it'll cost you a bag of sweeties to buy. You can also, for a bag of sweeties a month, you can subscribe to patreon.com/Andy Luke, where this podcast is premiered early each month. In April, I'm writing a new poem a day for National Poetry Month. There's also comics coming, forgotten favourites, new stuff, new prose, novel excerpts and short stories. The next couple of months on there are going to be really exciting. Patreon.com/Andy Luke.
And if I could just jump in about Chaos Magic, Andy, as you know, we've talked about this before, I am not a big fan of poetry. But I got Andy's book, I read it cover to cover. It's easy to read and it's excellent. I really recommend it, because as I said, I didn't like poetry, but you know, reading this has made me think, I should give more poetry a try. Really excellent.
Thank you, Ian. That's one of those ideal reviews.
Can I get my tenner now?
Later. So, as I said, Ian and I will be covering the final 4 seasons of The Shield in June. And next time I'll be joined by Phil Boyce, and we'll be celebrating the 35th anniversary of children's humour comic Oink, an anarchic publication that rocked the very foundations of British politics for a generation. So come back for that. Yo!
Hold on. You're seeing other people?
I'm polypodcasters.
Oh.
Keep it fresh.
Okay.
There's always laying down the Lawther.
There is.
You have me exclusive.
I can have Andy exclusive.
Yeah.
Brilliant.
You got that tenner now?
Yeah, here.